People care more about themselves than your struggles because that's the natural wiring of human beings. We wake up in the morning with our own worries in mind, not somebody else's. The first thought isn't about your setbacks. It's about the meeting we have to run to, the bill that's due tomorrow, or the argument from last night that hasn't been resolved. That's not selfishness, it's survival. Each person lives inside their own reality, and that reality is heavy enough without adding the weight of someone else's problems on top. When you understand this, it stops feeling like rejection and starts feeling like clarity about how people operate. You stop taking it personally because you recognize everyone is moving through their own storm. The truth is, when you tell people your problems, most of them aren't listening to understand. They're listening just enough to respond. They may nod, say, "That's tough," or throw in a quick piece of advice, but then their mind drifts back to their own world. And that's because empathy has limits. People only have so much capacity to care deeply before their attention snaps back to their own concerns. That doesn't mean they don't like you, and it doesn't mean they want to see you fail. It simply means their main priority is themselves, and they can only give you a fraction of their focus before their own life calls them back. Think about the last time someone vented to you. You probably listened for a while, maybe you even offered some advice, but eventually your brain started wandering to your own list of things to do. That's human nature. And if you felt that way while someone else was unloading, imagine how others feel when you're the one doing the unloading. People have limited emotional bandwidth. The more you ask them to carry, the less space they have to hold it. This is why so many conversations about problems feel unsatisfying, because the person you're telling isn't invested at the level you need them to be. They're half in, half out, and you're left feeling like no one cares. Here's where the shift happens. Instead of seeing it as a lack of care, see it as a reminder of responsibility. Your problems are yours to solve. Other people may cheer you on, but they won't put in the work for you. They can't because they're already working through their own mess. The sooner you realize this, the less disappointed you'll feel when people don't show up the way you want them to. Stop expecting others to prioritize your storm when they're fighting to stay afloat in their own. This doesn't make people cold, it makes them human. Everyone is juggling their battles, some just hide it better than others. When you stop leaning on the idea that someone else is supposed to care more, you take back control. You stop giving your peace away by waiting for validation or attention that may never come. That's when your strength starts to grow, because now you're not relying on someone else's reaction to dictate how you feel about your situation. You know they don't care as much as you do, and that frees you to carry the weight without resentment. That shift is powerful because it forces you to dig into your own resilience instead of wasting energy being upset about other people's lack of investment. There's also freedom in not oversharing. The fewer people you tell about your struggles, the more mental space you keep for yourself. Every time you pour your problems out to someone who doesn't truly care, you're draining yourself twice. Once from the problem itself and once from the disappointment of their half-hearted response. But when you hold it closer, work on it quietly, and stop expecting others to carry it with you, you start moving differently. You become more focused, less frustrated, and you realize that not needing others to care is a form of self-protection. People aren't against you, they're just for themselves. That's a critical difference. They'll listen for a moment, maybe offer support in passing, but their main attention is always pulled back to their own lives. And when you accept that, you stop placing unrealistic expectations on them. You stop seeing their lack of deep care as a betrayal, and instead, you see it as the way the world works. Everyone is busy starring in their own movie, and in their movie, your role isn't as big as you think it is. When you overshare your problems, you might think you're building closeness, but often you're actually creating distance. Relationships aren't strengthened by constant negativity, they're strengthened by balance. Think about it. If every time someone hears from you, it's another story about what went wrong, eventually they stop looking forward to hearing from you. People want connection, yes, but they don't want to feel drained every time they interact. Oversharing shifts the relationship dynamic from mutual exchange to one-sided venting, and the weight of that imbalance starts to push people away. At first, friends and family may listen with patience, but over time, repeated unloading can wear them out. Nobody signs up to be a permanent outlet for stress. When you consistently make conversations about your struggles, it becomes less about sharing and more about transferring emotional baggage. And when someone feels like they're constantly carrying your load, resentment builds quietly. They may not say it out loud, but they'll start creating distance, taking longer to reply, avoiding calls, or keeping interactions surface level. That's how oversharing drains relationships rather than strengthening them. We often confuse vulnerability with dumping. Vulnerability is honest, but it's measured, thoughtful, and intentional. Dumping, on the other hand, is spilling everything in the hope that someone else will fix the emotional mess. Vulnerability fosters trust. Dumping depletes it. Oversharing doesn't make someone feel closer to you, it makes them feel cornered. And the more often it happens, the harder it becomes for that relationship to feel like a safe space. Because instead of creating intimacy, it creates fatigue. No one thrives in a connection where they feel obligated to absorb constant negativity without a break. The reason oversharing drains others is because people only have so much emotional bandwidth. Just like your phone battery drains from too many apps running in the background, a person's energy drains from being overloaded with someone else's problems. And unlike your phone, they can't just recharge instantly by plugging in. They need their own recovery time. So when your problems constantly take up that space, they have less left for their own struggles, their goals, their peace of mind. That's why the relationship begins to weaken, not from lack of care, but from lack of balance in emotional exchange. Oversharing also changes the way people see you. Instead of being viewed as strong, reliable, or resilient, you risk being seen as dependent or exhausting. That's not the image you want to leave behind. Relationships thrive when both people bring energy, not when one person drains it away. Think about the people you admire. They're usually the ones who handle challenges with composure, who share enough to be real, but not so much that they leave everyone else depleted. The difference isn't that they don't have problems. It's that they choose carefully how, when, and with whom to share them. Protecting relationships means respecting emotional boundaries. Not every thought that crosses your mind needs to be voiced. Not every frustration needs to be retold. Selectivity is key. By keeping some struggles private or processing them before speaking, you preserve the strength of your connections. People will actually respect you more when they realize you don't rely on constant venting. Instead, you're the kind of person who manages life's challenges and only shares in a way that adds value to the conversation rather than draining it. That's how bonds grow stronger instead of weaker. Here's the shift. You don't have to share every problem to feel supported. In fact, your relationships get healthier when you give them room to breathe. Save the deeper conversations for people who've proven they can handle it. And even then, don't make it the only thing you bring to the table. Share your wins, your growth, your lessons, not just your losses. That balance keeps relationships alive. Because when oversharing turns into a pattern, it doesn't create closeness, it creates exhaustion, and exhaustion is the quickest way to drain the very connections you value most. Support isn't about how long you talk about the problem, it's about what you're willing to do about it. Complaining may feel like release in the moment, but it rarely changes anything. Action does. When you take a step toward a solution, no matter how small, that's when people around you see you differently. They see progress, not pity. And that's the kind of energy others want to invest in because progress inspires people while complaining wears them down. True support is drawn toward movement, not stagnation. Think about the people in your life who've earned your respect. They're not the ones who constantly talk about how bad things are. They're the ones who roll up their sleeves and do something about it. You may hear them acknowledge a struggle, but you also see them take ownership of the outcome. That's the difference between being someone others want to support and being someone others want to avoid. People naturally lean toward action takers because action shows commitment, and commitment is contagious. Complaining without action, on the other hand, signals that nothing is going to change. When you complain endlessly, You're actually asking people to share in your frustration without giving them a reason to believe things will improve. That's why it drains them. Nobody wants to sit in a cycle where the same problems are rehashed but never resolved. True support thrives when there's direction. If you show that you're willing to take steps, even small ones, others are far more likely to stand beside you, cheer you on, and maybe even help you along the way. But if all you do is vent, you're not inviting support, you're inviting sympathy fatigue. Support also looks different when action is involved. Instead of just saying, I'm stuck, you're saying, here's what I'm doing, and here's where I could use help. That changes everything. It turns the conversation from a weight to a collaboration. People feel more energized when they can contribute to progress, not when they're forced to sit in the same old story. Action creates momentum, and momentum makes it easier for others to rally around you. Complaining keeps everything still, and in stillness, support withers because people don't see a future to invest in. There's also something empowering about realizing you don't need endless complaining to feel understood. You need solutions. Every time you take initiative, you prove to yourself that you're capable of handling more than you thought. That self-proof radiates outward. People notice when you're not just talking about the problem, but actively working to fix it. It shifts their perception of you from a victim of circumstance to a driver of change. And people are far more willing to support someone who demonstrates resilience than someone who clings to helplessness. Endless complaining also erodes credibility. The more you talk about problems without taking action, the less seriously people take you over time. At first, they might nod and offer encouragement, but eventually, they realize nothing changes no matter how much they listen. That's when support begins to fade. But when you couple your words with action, you show integrity. You're not just saying you're struggling, you're showing you're willing to work through it. That consistency builds trust, and trust is the foundation of real support. So, if you want true support, stop relying on endless complaining to get it. Start moving, even if the first steps feel small or imperfect. Show others that you're committed to making things better, and they'll be more likely to walk with you. Because support isn't about how loudly you speak about your problems, it's about how clearly you demonstrate your effort to overcome them. Complaining tells people you're stuck. Action tells people you're serious, and seriousness is what inspires people to care, to show up, and to support you in ways that complaining never could. Your energy is one of the most valuable resources you have, and every time you share your problems, you're either protecting that energy or draining it, depending on who you confide in. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your struggles. Some people listen just to gossip later, others pretend to care but only half absorb what you're saying, and a few might even use your vulnerability against you. That's why choosing carefully who you open up to isn't about being secretive, it's about being wise. You can't expect everyone to handle your storms with care. When you confide in the wrong person, the weight you were hoping to lift only grows heavier. Instead of walking away lighter, you walk away questioning if you shared too much or worried about how they might twist your words later. That's not relief, that's regret. Protecting your energy means avoiding situations where you feel drained after opening up. It means recognizing that not every friend, coworker, or family member has the capacity or the character to hold your trust. Selectivity saves you from the cycle of oversharing and disappointment that comes when the wrong ears hear the right words. The truth is, some people don't even want solutions when they listen to you. They just want entertainment. They like having something to talk about when you're not around. And the moment you realize this, you start to see why your energy feels lower after certain conversations. Trust isn't about who's around you the most. It's about who proves through their actions that they can be a safe place for your struggles. Protecting your energy requires you to step back and ask, does this person have my best interest at heart? Or do they just enjoy having access to my life? When you choose carefully who to confide in, you're not only guarding yourself against betrayal, you're also preserving your mental clarity. You can't process your problems properly if your focus is split between handling the issue itself and worrying about how others will judge you for it. The right person provides perspective, encouragement, or even just quiet understanding without making it about themselves. The wrong person adds noise, judgment, or distraction. Protecting your energy means filtering out the noise so your mental space stays clear enough to focus on moving forward instead of backtracking through regret. Another layer of protecting your energy is timing. Even the right person can't always be the right person at the wrong moment. Dumping all your struggles onto someone who's already carrying a heavy load can backfire and strain the relationship. Being intentional about when and how you share keeps your energy safe and keeps your relationships balanced. It's not just about who, it's also about when. Part of maturity is recognizing that not every moment is the right moment to confide. Even if the person you trust most is standing right in front of you, there's also power in keeping certain things to yourself. Privacy isn't weakness, it's strategy. Not every problem needs an audience. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is handling something quietly, working through it without inviting unnecessary opinions or distractions. Protecting your energy often looks like silence, not secrecy. It's the difference between bottling things up and choosing to preserve your strength. The less scattered your energy becomes from telling the wrong people, the more you can channel it into solutions that actually move your life forward instead of sideways. At the end of the day, protecting your energy comes down to boundaries. Boundaries around who gets to hear your struggles, how much detail you share, and when you allow yourself to open up. Without boundaries, your energy leaks into places it was never meant to go. With boundaries, your energy stays focused, preserved, and strong enough to carry you through the challenges ahead. Choosing carefully who you confide in isn't about pushing people away. It's about surrounding yourself with the kind of voices that build you up instead of breaking you down. Strength doesn't come from how loudly you talk about your struggles. It comes from how you face them when no one is watching. Broadcasting problems might get you a quick reaction, but it won't get you growth. Growth happens when you sit with the challenge, figure out your next step, and actually do something about it. That's where resilience is built. Talking about pain can feel like progress, but if nothing changes afterward, you're still in the same place. Solving problems is what separates strength from sympathy. When you constantly broadcast your struggles, what you're really doing is outsourcing validation. You're hoping that someone else's reaction will make you feel stronger, but that kind of strength is temporary because it depends on other people showing up. Real strength is internal. It comes from knowing you handled something without needing the world's approval. Every time you solve a problem on your own, you add another layer to your resilience. Broadcasting might make you feel heard, but solving is what makes you feel capable. Think about the people you admire most. They're not the ones who narrate every setback to anyone who will listen. They're the ones who quietly handle business and let the results speak for them. That's because strength isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the work that no one sees. Broadcasting struggles invites attention, but it doesn't build credibility. What builds credibility is showing that when life hit hard, you didn't just talk about it, you pushed through it. That quiet persistence is what people respect. Solving problems also gives you confidence that can't be faked. When you know you've handled something difficult, you walk differently, you speak differently, and you carry yourself with a level of calm that broadcasting can't create. Confidence doesn't come from likes, comments, or nods of sympathy. It comes from experience, from proving to yourself that you can face challenges head on and come out stronger. Broadcasting tells people what you're going through, but solving teaches you who you really are when pressure shows up. There's also a cost to making your struggles public. The more you broadcast, the more room you give for opinions, judgment, or even pity that doesn't help you move forward. Instead of feeling supported, you often feel more overwhelmed because now you're carrying both the problem and other people's perspectives about it. Solving keeps your focus clear. It directs your energy where it matters, on action, not on reactions. Protecting your energy by keeping problems close and solutions front and center is what builds lasting strength. Strength is also built through consistency. Broadcasting is easy. You can post, vent, or complain in seconds. But solving takes patience, discipline, and persistence. It forces you to dig deeper, to stay with the discomfort until you figure it out. And every time you choose solving over broadcasting, you train yourself to rely less on outside attention and more on inner resolve. That's the kind of strength that lasts because it doesn't fade when the audience disappears. It stays with you, ready for the next challenge. At the core, strength comes from ownership, owning the problem, owning the process, and owning the outcome. Broadcasting hands away ownership by inviting others to carry a piece of it for you. Solving keeps it in your hands and forces you to step into responsibility. That's not easy, but it's the only way to grow. Every problem solved is another brick in the foundation of your strength, a foundation that broadcasting can never build. And when life brings the next storm, that foundation is what carries you through.